When you think of The Last of Us, you usually don't think of hidden secrets and Easter eggs. But The Last of Us is a series that revels in creating tiny aha moments throughout its journey. If you didn't get a chance to experience these fun homages and legendary tales, here's 10 things you didn't know about The Last of Us.
Warning, some of these can be pretty spoiler heavy, so proceed with caution.
Number 10. Music to my ears. In The Last of Us Part 1, during the Billstown chapter, Ellie and Joel enter the marquee music store containing bands that existed at the time of the outbreak. These can be found in the record store in the Enemy of My Enemy segment of Left Behind, and the record store during the downtown Seattle exploration section of The Last of Us Part 2. These include the Blackguard Boys, Full Funk, and the Shamballas. Although they may take a namesake closer to the Backstreet Boys, the album art for the album Into the Breach by the Blackguard Boys has a real-life counterpart in AC/DC's 1981 album For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. The album Unidentified Objects by the band Full Funk takes direct inspiration from the 1975 album Mothership Connection by the band Parliament. And the Shamballas are a Naughty Dog universe reference to the mystical city that Nathan Drake discovers in Uncharted 2. But musically, their album An Evening with the Shamballas is more closely tied to the 60s pop group the Shangri-Las. And it's important to note that Shangri-La is another name used for the mythical city of Shambhala. I couldn't find the names of the bands for these next records, but on the wall of the music store you can find references to What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, Blue by Joni Mitchell, and Animals by Pink Floyd.
The Last of Us Part 2 contains several real-life music inclusions.
When you track down Nora in the hospital during Ellie's section, you can hear It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube playing. Ellie sings a melancholic version of Take On Me by a-ha to Dina, and two Crooked Still songs pop up when you switch back to Ellie later in the game. Ain't No Grave plays while Ellie is living in the farmhouse with Dina and JJ, and Little Sadie plays during a flashback at the very end of the game over a moment that Dina and Ellie first kiss. And some important facts about the two songs themselves are that although they're performed by Crooked Still for the game, Ain't No Grave is actually a gospel song originally written by Claude Ely. It's also famously covered by Johnny Cash, and Little Sadie is a blues song, and we don't know the writer from 1922, but Bob Dylan has a very famous cover. In The Last of Us Part 2, the song that Joel sings to Ellie at the start of the game is a Pearl Jam song called Future Days. According to GameSpot's amazing editor Jordan Ramey, the Pearl Jam album with this song on it released on October 13th, 2013. The Outbreak Day in the Last of Us universe was September 26th, 2013. The only version of that song existing before release was a live performance in July of that same year. This means that Joel was either at a Pearl Jam concert in July of 2013 and remembered exactly how the song went, or found the distribution plant for the CD because it was never able to be fully released. You can also find the poster for the album that the song is on called Lightning Bolt in the music shop in downtown Seattle, where the band Pearl Jam is originally from.
I like the idea of Joel headbanging at a Pearl Jam concert. Just anything to give that man some happiness.
Number 9. Get your eyes checked, kid. A small but poignant message is snuck into the eye charts of the Firefly-occupied hospital in The Last of Us Part 1. Each eye chart reads, "Run, you are nearly there, don't quit." Although fitting for the horror-stricken world of The Last of Us, I would be terrified if I saw that at my next eye exam. Number 8, well read. Both parts of The Last of Us contain references to the books that influence the series. In The Last of Us Part 1, Ellie carries a book with her in the Lakeside Resort section of the game. The book is titled To Get to the Other Side, written by Catherine McCormack. McCormack is a reference to Cormac McCarthy, the author of the Pulitzer-winning book, The Road. The Road is the story of a father and son that travel across a post-apocalyptic United States. Two references to another book round out the two major literary influences behind The Last of Us. In The Last of Us Part 1, a newspaper clipping artifact that Joel and Ellie find in the university section of the game lists the journalist as Lev Benioff. This is a reference to the 2008 book City of Thieves, written by David Benioff, showrunner and writer of Game of Thrones, and features a protagonist named Lev. The connection to City of Thieves is strengthened further during Abby's portion of The Last of Us Part 2. During Abby's section of Seattle Day 1, she wakes up after having fallen asleep while reading City of Thieves. And as stated before, Lev is the main character of the novel, which mirrors the name of the young Seraphite kid Lev, who becomes a major player in Abby's character arc. Number 7, the Naughty Dog verse.
Naughty Dog has placed references to its other franchises inside the Last of Us games. Here are a few standouts.
Right after meeting Henry and Sam, you can find plush toys based off of Nathan Drake, Jack, and Daxter. These are located in the child's room in the Serenity Apartments. Jack and Daxter are up on the dresser, and Nathan Drake is on the bed. Similar to the plush toys in the Choo Choo toy store, a few Uncharted and Jack and Daxter board games are nestled into the far corner on a shelf. In Pittsburgh, you can find a pub named O'Sullivan's. This is A, referencing Victor Sullivan of the Uncharted games, and B, if you go inside, it looks almost identical to the pub at the beginning of Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. Right outside O'Sullivan's, as well as outside the arcade and Left Behind, sits Java Jack, a coffee cart referencing Jack from Jack and Daxter. In the Halloween store in Left Behind, Ellie finds both Uncharted and Jack and Daxter themed costumes. The arcade in Left Behind is called Raja's Arcade. This is in reference to Eddie and Rika Raja from the Uncharted series of games. The Jack X Combat Racing arcade game that is out of order in Raja's Arcade is a reference to the PS2 game of the same name. In The Last of Us Part 2, both Ellie and Eugene have PS3s, which also appear all over the series. In the mess hall, Abby's friend Jordan is playing the Fire Canyon section of Jack and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy on a Vita. In the Westlake Bank in downtown Seattle, inside a security deposit box is a ring with the inscription Sic Parvis Magna. This is the seminal ring that belongs to Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. Number 6, Don't Stop Me Now. In The Last of Us Part 1, on the wall next to the toy store, there's a poster that says, "I want to ride my bicycle," with an image of a top hat and a bike. This is a reference to the 1978 song Bicycle Race by Queen. Number 5, Not Today Capitalism. In The Last of Us Part 1, there are some corporate mascots that represent much bleaker versions of their real-life counterparts. One very notable example is the game of Strife. On the second floor of the ranch house, there is a board game box labeled The Game of Strife. This is a much more somber version of the real-life board game, The Game of Life. Number 4, The Legend of Ish. Throughout The Last of Us Part 1, you can find a selection of notes and artifacts hinting at the lives of previous residents of the areas you traverse. None leads you down as intense a rabbit hole as the resident of the sewers known as Ish. Ish did not start in the sewers in Pittsburgh. The first note you find from him details that he was living on a trawling boat and was away at sea when the outbreak occurred. After running out of supplies, Ish ran his boat aground near the sewers and created a safe house in them. Again, running low on supplies, he scavenged the nearby suburbs where he encountered Susan, Kyle, and their kids. Ish offered them safety in the sewers, and they joined him to create a larger community branching off of his existing safe house. The community thrived for a while and grew to include Danny. Ish and Danny served as the protectors of the refuge, salvaging weapons and armor off of dead soldiers in the area. During this time, we get the only depiction of Ish as drawn by one of the children in the camp. The peace would not last, however. The door to the community was left open by an unknown someone, allowing a horde of infected to clean out most of the camp. Ish, Susan, and some of the children from the community were able to escape into the suburbs. Their whereabouts as of the time of The Last of Us Part 1 are unknown. Although this story is pieced together through found artifacts and notes, the story of Ish is not an entirely original one. Ish is thought to be a reference to Isherwood Ish Williams, the main character in the novel Earth Abides from 1949. In the novel, Williams creates a community of pandemic survivors and is also a sailor, with his name being another reference to Ishmael, the main protagonist from Moby Dick. 3. Movie magic. Throughout The Last of Us Parts 1 and 2, visual and spoken references to real-life movies pop up again and again. In The Last of Us Part 1, as Ellie and Joel explore the Serenity Apartments, they can shiv open a locked room that contains fictional representations of real-life films. These include Hair Trigger, referencing The Transporter, The Season of Vengeance, referencing the film The Last Samurai, and The Lost Kingdom, which is in reference to the Indiana Jones franchise. Along with these posters, the film Dawn of the Wolf appears in many different places throughout The Last of Us Part 1. From its first appearance in Sarah's bedroom, to billboards and movie posters, this fictional horror romance is a direct reference to the Twilight series. In The Last of Us Part 2 in the Westlake Bank, Dina and Ellie discuss a movie with surfer bank robbers, a reference to the film Point Break, starring the illustrious Keanu Reeves. In Abby's section very early on, Manny mentions that he wants to watch a movie until he passes out. When Mel questions him about which movie he's going to pick, he states he's going to watch a film where a girl rides on a wolf. Due to his previous admission of being an anime fan, it's highly probable that Manny is going to watch one of my favorite movies of all time, Princess Mononoke. Number 2, the 0451 code. During Ellie's first day in Seattle, the gate code for Gate West 2 is 0451. This code pops up in games such as System Shock 2, BioShock Dishonored, and Thief: The Dark Project. The code itself is an in-reference to the code used to get into the offices of Looking Glass Studios, developers of System Shocks 1, 2, and Thief. It's important to know that Naughty Dog are not the only studio to use this reference. Looking Glass Studios is so beloved by developers that this code has appeared in at least 20 games, some that use a key code and some that don't even have keypad technology in them. Number 1. The Last of Us Vice. In the same section that Ellie hunts down Nora in the hospital on her day 2 in Seattle, the first combat encounter you have upon entering the hospital is with a young guard playing their Vita. What game are they so lost in? Hotline Miami. Another story of revenge and desperation.
The hidden secrets and Easter eggs inside the Last of Us series are as richly cultivated and layered as the performances and environments that Naughty Dog has created. I love that they can make references to their own IPs as well as other references in pop culture while maintaining the tone and atmosphere of The Last of Us. We'll have to see if The Last of Us Part 1 remake hides any more treats. For everything else video games, keep it here at GameSpot.